right, here we go for the most requested video of all time, the best street food in Athens. And we're gonna start by talking about pita wraps. Because in case you haven't watched my other videos, we don't call this a gyros or a gyro or a gyro. We call that whole thing a gyros. And the most common versions of gyros are chicken and pork, but from time to time, you can find lamb or beef as well. Now, if you've watched some other videos about Athens' street food online, it's very likely you've heard of the two Kostas places. And it's true that they're both super good. But what these videos don't tell you is that you often have to wait over half an hour to get your tiny wrap because they have become so famous with all the influencers telling people that this is the place to go. It's not the place to go, it's a place. And there are so many other amazing gyros places at the same level. It's just that influencers don't talk about the other ones, and so there's zero waiting line over there. So, where do I recommend you go? Well, my all-around favorite Souvlaki, so that's the name of places selling pita wraps, is called Street Souvlaki. Delicious pork and chicken gyros, but also many other options, and that's something you need to keep in mind. Athens has by far the largest diversity in what you can put in your wrap. You go to Santorini, you go to Mykonos, you only have a few options, but here in the capital, the menus are really, really long, and there's tons of delicious stuff to discover. So what do I recommend you get at Street Souvlaki apart from the obvious gyros? Well, for sure you can try a wrap with a seftalia inside, which is a thick sausage traditional from the island of Cyprus. It's usually a mix of pork and lamb, and it has a very strong meaty flavor. You can also go for a wrap stuffed with Souvlaki, which is roughly the same, but it's beef instead of pork and lamb, and the taste is less on the meat side and more aromatic, so like cumin, paprika, garlic, all of that. Now, if you're not that much of a meat person, then you can try their wrap stuffed with halloumi, which is a sheep cheese that they grill beforehand to create a nice crispy crust. Oh, and by the way, for my gluten-intolerant viewers, this place also has pita bread made from corn flour. So write this one down because there are not many places with gluten-free options. Before we move on to the next gyros place I recommend, I would really appreciate it if you'd consider making a one-time donation by scanning this QR code or click on the link down below. It really does make a difference. So thank you very much. The second place I want to recommend is Lefteris Opolitis. They only have two things on their menu, Souvlaki and Biftekia. Souvlaki, I already told you what they were. It's this beef sausage full of spices. Biftekia are pretty similar, just a bit more juicy because the meat is left cooking in its own juices for longer. Very, very nice stuff. And at Lefteris, they have delicious, super fresh pita bread, usually charred on the grill with some lamb fat to make it even tastier. And just so you know, the wraps there are a little smaller than average, but that's okay because they're also cheaper, so just order two per person. The third place I want to recommend is Just Pita. They have chicken and pork gyros, and they're very nice, but if you go there, it's to try the kodosouvli, which are these thick pieces of meat slowly roasting on the rotating spit and served whole, unlike gyros, which is always shaved off the meat tower, giving you much smaller pieces. So gyros will be very crunchy, while kodosouvli will be very tender. Kodosouvli is by far the juiciest way the Greeks cook meat. So if you like soft, juicy meat, kodosouvli is for you, and Just Pita is the place to go. And by the way, you can choose between pork, chicken, and lamb. But for lamb, go there early because they sell out every day very fast. Next, we have Elvis. Most Athenians will tell you that's where the best kalamakia, or which northern Greeks will call souvlakia, by the way. They don't serve it in pita wraps. They just give it to you on a small platter with some fries, some bread, and a lemon to be squeezed on the whole thing, and it is delicious. Next, we have a place called Hukot. Now, this one is very alternative. So this is a place you want to go after you've already tried all the basics, which I just talked about. They have stuff like pita wraps with fried calamari and tarama, which is a thick fish sauce. Something else they have is a pita wrap with tzatziki and dolmades, which are grape leaves stuffed with rice. And they also have pita wraps with mutton, so the adult sheep. If you've watched my video on Athens' best restaurants, you know I'm a huge fan of that. Now, this was for the very center of Athens, places you can reach in probably less than 15 minutes from your hotel on foot. If you're willing to walk a bit longer or get a cab, I have one more place for you. It's called Ovelistirio Ivonica. It's just next to the Neos Cosmos metro station, which is on the Red Line, so connected to Sindarma. Now, this place is actually a butcher shop at first, which, says a few things on how much they know about meat. And on top of the usual chicken and pork gyros, they have two more. Lamb gyros, which is so hard to find in Greece, mainly because lamb is much more expensive than the other animals, and so there's less demand for it. And doner. Now, what's doner? Well, it's the more Turkish way of doing it, which is instead of piling up pieces of meat, you grind up that meat to basically get a paste, and then you compress this paste around the spit. Now, the great thing about this technique is that you get to add lots of extra ingredients in the mix, and they won't fall off. So it's very common to have lots of blended onions and garlic cloves inside the paste, and all sorts of other spices as well. Doner is usually beef or a mix of beef and lamb. So yeah, if you want to try lamb gyros or doner, this is your place. Alright, that was for the pita wraps. Now let's talk about the other famous type of street food in Greece, pies. And when we say pies in Greece, we mean this, of course, not that. Greek pies are basically stuffed bread. Well, it's not exactly bread, it's like phyllo dough, which are these very thin layers of bread dough, a bit like a croissant, but without the puffiness of the croissant. The most famous pie is the spinach pie, spanakopita in Greek, but there are so many others. Cheese pies, chicken pies, mushroom pies, and the list goes on. My three favorite bakeries for all of that are Takis Bakery near the Acropolis Museum, Ariston Lobotesi near Sindarma Square, and Creme Royale near Monastiraki Square. And as a little bonus, I'm going to give you one more, which is specialized in Bougatsa, which is the same as a pie, but with way thinner layers of phyllo dough and more butter. The place is called Bougatsa, and it's located on city's main square. The most famous type of Bougatsa is the Bougatsa me crema, which is stuffed with custard, so this one is sweet. But they also have Bougatsa stuffed with ground beef, which is what I always order when I'm there. Awesome stuff. Alright, so we've talked about the pita wraps and the pies. Those are the two very typical Greek types of street food. But since Athens is the capital, there's a few additional things to try, which you wouldn't find anywhere else, like Zissis, for instance, which serves fried seafood in a cone, squid, shrimps, sardines, and many more, and you can either sit down or have it to go. Feyrouz is a Lebanese place where you can have some delicious lahmacun stuffed with baba ganoush, and for dessert, the absolutely amazing künefe, which is basically fried sweet cheese with a pistachio topping. Write this one down, künefe, it is so good. And for my vegan friends, I recommend Vegan Beat Athens, where they have all sorts of vegan street food. Now, one question I get a lot is, look, I don't want to walk all of Athens when it's so hot outside. So what alternatives do I have, considering most places are pedestrian and so I can't use taxis to move around? Well, the alternative is to book an e-bike tour. You get to see all of Athens in just 2 hours and a half, and you can do it either in the early morning or the late afternoon to avoid midday heat. Perfect way to see Athens during the hotter months. And for the best wine tours in Santorini, you can watch this one. And there you go, that's it for today. Bye.